I might have mentioned it. I don't know. But
I've got a bad memory, so
Me too.
we'll go to that. Yeah, to the DJ stuff, into the Yooka convo, and then Turbo to wrap it up.
And if we have enough time.
We'll do, dude, we're doing Turbo whether you like it or not.
We are going to make if we are running 2 hours long, we are going to release a very special episode that goes into TurboGrafx.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery,
Hey, everybody.
John Hines,
Hey there.
and DJ Mandolini.
Yo.
And we are back to talk about some video games, guys. Mm-hmm. How's everybody doing today?
All right.
Lovely.
Doing all right?
Actually,
Nice.
If I may say really quickly, I was very infuriated earlier today because Walmart was supposed to be, having more PlayStation 5s in stock.
And Xboxes, for that matter.
Correct.
You've been leaning. Are you thinking of getting one, DJ? You haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Oh, well, I've wanted to. There's just
I know you
stock.
didn't pre-order it, so I didn't know if you were for sure trying to get one like right off the bat.
Yeah, I dropped the ball on the pre-order stuff, but yeah, I've been checking pretty much every day for stock, and some dropped on Walmart's website. It was announced that it was going to happen, so right at 2:00 Central Time, I refreshed, it was there, and I went I got all the way to the place order button, and then
Oh my gosh,
out of stock. So
Dang it. Dude, this reminds me so much of the Wii days when we worked at Best Buy, Randall. Just people coming in constantly. When's your shipment coming in? When's your shipment coming in?
Oh, yeah, they were losing their minds.
It was psycho for 2 years.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yes.
That same thing happened with the NES Classic. I remember being in a bathroom placing an order on Walmart's website because I think they accidentally listed it, and then I had to get a refund on my order because they didn't actually have the stock or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Dang. Well, real quick, is there anything you're dying to play on PS5, DJ? What are you wanting this console for so much? Because I know there's not a huge launch lineup.
Sadly, my top game to play will be Demon Souls.
It'll be a PlayStation 3 game.
Yeah.
Do you have Demon Souls?
I think, Kevin, you had it when we lived together, and that's when I played it.
No, I didn't have it, but probably Steve.
Okay. That's when I played it, and it just that one time, and I've been wanting them to remaster it, and then just figured it wasn't going to happen. And when it was announced, I was just so happy, and that is my focus.
All right. Nice.
But it'll have to wait because there's no stock.
Yeah, we get between that and the VR stuff that we've talked about. I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts if you end up pulling the trigger and getting that going.
I'm 100% going to be doing that.
Nice. Nice. Well, we'll be following up. We'll be on the beat for once on the podcast. So, but I guess I shouldn't say that because we're still sort of on the beat here with what John's going to talk about today. Although I know you got a little bit of a couple games you want to kind of dig into here, John, and some thoughts. So why don't you just dig into it right off the top here?
Yeah. So I've been playing more Control. That's been a game that I've been hotly anticipating and been sinking my teeth into and trying to get as much, that it has that discovery of different logbooks and stuff. I've literally had game sessions where I will just sit down and read all of the little audio tapes or excerpts that I've got, just the lore stuff.
Nice.
That you're kind of aware of through the main story, but really there's just so much that's just text pages, and I love it. I think it's great. That is something that I love in so many games. When I played through BioShock, I would just go search every single room for maybe there's a little logbook here, or in Metroid Prime, I'm scanning everything and then reading every single entry and getting that little flavor text. I know that it's for most people a completely optional, and like maybe some people don't enjoy that mode of like storytelling. But
well, I would say there's a pretty huge gap between scanning everything in Metroid Prime and then just finding some audio logs scattered through. Because I enjoy the audio log aspect of I didn't play the original BioShock, but Infinite, and I enjoyed like playing those because like they kind of play in the background while you keep playing the game, and I really liked how that played out. But like Metroid Prime, when it gets down to like scan every enemy, every interactable object in the game, it's like, okay, this is a little tedious, but I know what you mean. I see what you mean in the same vein and whatnot.
Yeah, so like that's been feeding into like, you know, what I like in video games. But also thing that I've really enjoyed about Control is that it is a very hyper mobile shooter.
Nice.
And one that isn't like in your conventional like first person or third person shooter like mechanics. Like,
yeah, it's not Nathan Drake.
No, like, and I really, really love like the less realistic or grounded in reality a shooter is, the more I take to it.
Oh yeah,
like,
same.
Yeah. Obviously, like I was saying, like I classify Metroid Prime as a shooter, even though it is a very hyper mobile game, and that, you know, the shooting you can lock on to a target with like a shoulder button, and you're always going to be strafing around it. So
Right.
the way that you interact with the world is a lot different in what is like, you know, kind of a dumbed down version of a shooter. But like the weird thing was that like I've also like I was trying to think of other games that kind of felt like Control, because spoilers for abilities in Control, you get a levitate ability.
Ooh.
And
Nice.
you can it's basically a toggle at the beginning. Like you hold like the jump button and you are remaining airborne for a period of time. So then you're able to aim and shoot while you're in midair, or
Nice.
use telekinesis and other things. So it's at its core, I would 100% like classify Control as a shooter primarily, but it has a lot of platforming, a lot of action controls that really appeal to me. Like that is exactly what I want in shooters, and that's exactly what like I feel, I don't know, like appeals to me most. And like I was trying to think of specifically like in regards to the levitating ability, another game that like kind of felt that same way, or at least felt it that way to me. And the game that like I've actually been like, I had misplaced my copy of it, and I had been really upset that I had lost it, and I somehow just found it this week, was my copy of Daemon X Machina.
Where was it again?
It was in my
in the
Doom
Discord
2016 case. Like just like, and like one, you know how like the jewel cases or whatever have little clamps or whatever.
Yeah.
Stick it in there
for a
along-
manual or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
And we've talked about it on the podcast. You've talked about Daemon X Machina on the podcast before, right?
Oh yeah, when it first
like
came out.
When it first came out, yeah.
Yeah, and like I back then I like compared it to Monster Hunter as a franchise, because you know it's kind of a very deliberate game. Like it's while it is very like hyper mobile and you're moving around in a mech, like the actual attacks are kind of slower in response. They're not like a typical shooter in that case, and like
A little more deliberate, yeah.
Right.
but like most of, because you're moving around so much and the enemies are moving around so much and the arenas are so big, there's like a lot of auto targeting. But like the way that you like fly as a mech in that game is very similar to the levitate controls in Control.
Oh.
So like you're jumping and you kind of have a like permanent slow descent. Like in Daemon X Machina, you don't really have like gravity. You're always like have a slow descent from the moment you're airborne. And like you have to equip you have to dedicate an entire equipment slot to a down thruster if you want to actually like descend at any usable rate. But because of that, like you spend a lot of time in aerial combat.
Right.
And like that is something that just feels good to me. Like I like the idea of being in a like truly 3D shooter.
Right.
Yeah, I was just going to
where-
say, like, because I remember playing the demo of Daemon X Machina when it first came out, and like it kind of had this like Star Fox feel, sort of, but not in the sense that you're on rails. Like, yeah, being able to like pull back and be in that 3D space, and not in the sense like where you're fighting. I know some of those bosses in Star Fox 64 and whatnot, you kind of like you're in like those arenas, but it's way different in Daemon X, or not way different, but different enough where you have these huge spaces that you can kind of explore almost.
Yeah, and like that's the thing is that I really love Control as a game that does kind of feel in some ways like a Metroidvania. Like you have a set environment that you're exploring like room to room, as opposed to like Daemon X Machina where you're in like level-based arenas. So you're not really like interacting with the environment as much as like you still have like the like breadth of controls in Daemon X Machina, but like, the levels themselves, like there's not a single one of them that's memorable in the slightest. Whereas like
I kind of got that vibe from the demo. Yeah. Like it's gameplay first.
Whereas like Control, I am like acutely aware of where every object is in every room, and like I'm moving around it in ways that are unique to that game. Like I don't really think that there are other games in that same genre that you have that like specific level of control and like just levitating and going through. And like it's kind of a bummer because I wish that there were more shooters that appealed directly to me and my very like specific wants and needs.
The one game that Control reminded me of a bit was Infamous Second Son. That was the only of the Infamous games I'd played. But
I thought you were going to say Titanfall 2 because that actually literally just appeared.
That actually kind of just popped in my head too, but I didn't think it was.
I could see that. Yeah,
I don't think it has strong enough parallels, but just the hyper agility I think is there. But
right.
I remember having a similar godlike feeling like when I was playing Infamous, and I agree. I don't think I've played many other games that give me that same feeling.
Yeah, I really love being incredibly like I love interacting with levels in ways that, you know, maybe not be the way that you're intending them. Like as soon as I got Levitate, I was like, all right, what is a surface I can land on? And then just like completely like see if I can go to places that either weren't like specifically meant to be in, or even like there are plenty of hidden areas in Control specifically. And like as soon as like I got to one of those from like, you know, like mapping out jumps so that I had the exact amount of like descent then possible to get to them, and I was like, and then a little like thing pops up that says, oh, hidden area discovered, and I was like, see, this is exactly what I want. This is I just love a very well crafted world to explore.
I do too.
Yeah, that's cool too, because you know right off the bat, if they're giving you that ability, even if it's down the line to levitate, you know you're not going to be just like going down corridors and going from cover to cover. I know we've kind of, DJ and I at least, have kind of dogged on Last of Us in the past, but I will say that is a nice quality of those games over the Uncharted games, where it's like very clear what you need to do in the Uncharted games, like go up to this cover. It's like almost like a shooting gallery, like Wild Gun style, you know, and it's like
leading you through corridors. Yeah.
Exactly. Where Last of Us, you at least like you can take a bunch of different paths and a bunch of different routes, like because you have so many different ways to get around and
a lot of secret
around
rooms.
the levels.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
But
very cool.
That was all I had on those games. I'm gonna keep playing them. Gonna keep trying to chip away and find new secrets. But if anyone out there is making games like these, keep making them, because I want to play them.
I need to buy Control. I want that.
It's good.
I need to play DJ's copy still and give it back to him. But you know, John, after we recorded the podcast last time when you talked about Control, that night I was already a little tipsy by the time we ended the session, and I ended up having a little more whiskey that night, and I booted up Alan Wake for the first time.
Yes.
And I streamed about an hour or so of that while I was very drunk. And it was pretty fun. And like I said, I know I have said in the past that games don't really scare me that much. That game is scary as fuck. I think I mentioned like you got that audio where like the voices are kind of like morphing in and out of like normal and kind of ghostly. I was going to say ghastly in Pokemon mode here. But yeah, I'm going to kill you. It's just like, it's so fucking creepy, man. It's scary. And you just got to use like a lot of flashlight mechanics to like shine at these like demon enemies before you can attack them and dodge. It's super fun. I had a really good time playing that. And I kind of wanted to just talk talk about a little bit about like, because I know that's set in the same world, but separate from that, I've just been doing a bunch of streaming lately and kind of wanted to just like touch on some games, and especially a couple that I'll highlight at the end of this here, because we haven't mentioned any of the itchio bundle for racial justice and equality games in a while, and I have been playing a few of those and going back, either digging back or starting up some new ones. But I did play through and actually do a full playthrough of Kero Blaster on Omake mode, so I've actually beaten like every mode of Kero Blaster.
You're crushing that game.
And I did that on the stream, which is awesome. I've been doing some full playthroughs, so I did a full playthrough of that. I did a full playthrough of Donut County, which again, I don't want to really spoil much because I know, John, you've played this before, and it's like my only gripe is, like you said, it's like a little short, and I know we talk about how we love our short little games, that are 3 hours.
Yeah, how is that
so.
a problem?
It was like an hour and 40 minutes or so, and it was just so good and charming and enjoyable, like everything about it, the music.
Yeah.
It's just like when it ended, I was just like, no, I want more. And it doesn't have that same kind of feel like Sayonara Wild Hearts. You can go back and kind of repeat levels and try to get a better score or like unlock stuff. This kind of is like you can go back and replay levels, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's like a point and click adventure that's actually fun.
Okay. Yeah, like once
it doesn't
you
feel
solve
like
a level, like it's not like there's a bunch of different ways to complete a level. It's kind of Katamari, but
yeah, exactly. With like more of just like it's got a little bit of a narrative to the experience, and like, or a lot of bit of narrative to the experience. It's just super charming. Just nails it on every level.
Nice.
So if you haven't played that game, highly recommend checking it out. But the games that I really, really wanted to highlight here real quick from that itchio bundle for racial justice and equality, I just did a full playthrough of Zone of Lacryma, although unfortunately I didn't download I downloaded the latest update of the game that added a couple new bosses in, but I unfortunately booted up the wrong folder and didn't play that. But it's mostly the same game, and it's a really cool like vertically scrolling shoot 'em up that it's like not tate mode, it's full screen, and then even lets you scroll a little bit left to right, which is very uncommon for these types of games, I feel.
These days especially. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a ton of like, so you have this meter that charges up on the side that like allows you have to actually have a percentage full to even use any of your weapons, and eventually you have like a regular fire, just like a machine gun kind of thing, and then a like kind of like slasher, like sword sort of thing that can clear bullets out of the way. And it's like, it's got a lot of story elements to it. Again, I did the full playthrough. It took me about 2 hours. There was 11 levels. I think it's still the same amount of levels with the new update, just more bosses, but like really engaging story, like kind of a little bit of Alien vibes, sort of, where you're just like, I feel like we're on this side, but something's fishy with the side that we're fighting for, and like things kind of shift as things go on.
Right.
It's got a really cool like minimalist pixel art style, like almost like the cutscenes or like the little like dialogue scenes look almost like rotoscoped. That's like a little bit off, but like the way that the palette is just so minimal, it's like yellow and orange. It just looks really flat, and like I just really like the retro style a lot. It's got an NES style overall, but like, yeah, you have to like use your turbo like speed burst that you can turn on and off to charge that meter so that you can fire your weapons, and you get all kinds of upgrades as the game goes on, and you can go for like leaderboards and stuff like that. You can select each level individually after the fact, after you've beaten them. It's just a really, really well polished game that was included in that itchio bundle, and I think it's only otherwise like $8, and like can't recommend it highly enough if you like shmups. Just like a lot of cool, there's like some escort missions that were really tough, some cool boss fights, like a lot of variety again, and then that story kind of pulling me through the experience. It really kind of like those 2 hours went by really fast.
Yeah, I watched you play some of that stream, and I was very impressed by the presentation and just the versatility of the gameplay for a top-down shmup. Like, wow.
Yeah, like even the cutscenes kind of are like they're playable. You're like a little character that's like running around in the ship. Like platformer style. You can't jump or anything, but you're like walking around talking to characters in between. It's like gives a nice pace to the game.
Yeah.
And again, a couple extra levels. Like usually shoot 'em ups have like about 8 levels, and this one had a few extra on top of that. But then again, I also played a game I've been meaning to talk about on the podcast forever that was also included in the bundle. Is called Eves Drop. And DJ, me and you have to play this game and compare scores and see who can get the higher score, because it just seems like a game that both of us would be up our alleys, and really up all our alleys. It's like very similar to Downwell. You're kind of free falling in this like cyberpunk hacking universe. And like as you fall, you're able to like you're only using the arrow keys for all controls, or in my case, I was using a controller with the joystick. or you can even use the face buttons, but it's essentially just 4 directions, and you're able to, like, if you pull up, you slow your free fall. If you pull down, you kind of speed up, and you land on these nodes that are colored in different ways. Some of them are enemies that you can just, once you land on them, you hold down, and you can launch them in one direction, and you can rotate clockwise or counterclockwise, and fire them off, and you can launch them almost like pinball bumpers, like into one another as you're free falling. And then there's these purple keys, there's these green like gate things, or not gates, I forget what they are, but then there's these blue gates, and every level you have to blow up enough of those gates that will, like, as you pass each like threshold, there'll be these gates that open up. Every time you blow up one of those blue nodes, it'll open up the gate a little further. But if you take damage, you don't actually die. You don't have a health bar or anything, but it'll close those gates more. And if you aren't able to pass through the gate, some of it's like reflex based, but for the most part, you get kind of like a bullet time slow-mo. If you have even the tiniest opening, you can kind of squeeze through there. You usually have enough time. This game's kind of difficult to describe because there's just so much going on. But I did a stream of this game and actually beat it 3 times in a row on my first 3 attempts, and then died a ton of times after that. And it actually crashed on me at the end of the stream. But like, this is probably, I mean, obviously there were just thousands of games included in that bundle, but of the stuff I've fired up, this is easily one of my favorites. I know it's available on Android. It's got a really great soundtrack from Rupert Cole. It's from 8 Points Games, and I just highly, or maybe it's 8 Point, I don't know if it's pluralized or not, but I just really can't recommend this experience enough. Even though it crashed on me once or twice, it just didn't even faze me. It was just like, I'm just going right back, fire the game up again, do it again. And like, they were like, some of the developers, actually Rupert Cole and one of the developers was watching the stream and like, I want to see you go for 1,000,000 points. So like, number one, I want to see if I can hit 1,000,000 points, but DJ, I want to know if, number one, I can get more points than you, and if you can crack 1,000,000 points as well. But I know you've been mentioning like, hey, if you play any of those itchio bundle games, to mention that I've been dipping into them, and I know this one is, I think, up your alley. I really, really love it. It's just such... It's similar to Downwell in some ways, but like it's got such a more fast paced vibe, if you can imagine that.
What's the name of this one again, Kevin?
It's called Eves Drop.
Eves Drop.
And they kind of like, it's some kind of like, at the very beginning of the game, it's just like New Year's Eve, 1999 or something, and then it's just like Big Brother has gotten out of hand, and then that's like all you get story wise.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Boo. Can't believe I just said to that instinctually.
What is but yeah. What is the high score mainly based off of?
It's just like, it's all about combo. So like, if you're killing more of those nodes and enemies and destroying them without taking damage, your combo meter keeps multiplying. Okay. Whereas as soon as you take damage, it just negates it immediately. So it's all about essentially that combo meter.
Okay.
So similar to Downwell, I guess.
Yeah.
In that facet as well.
All right.
And then I guess real quick, before we even got on the podcast tonight, I've talked about 10S on the podcast before from Ouch, and that's Ouch with a W instead of a single U. But I really, I really love this game. It's like a bullet hell tennis game, but very different from Skyracket that Randall and I talked about a couple weeks ago. It's more like a third-person isometric perspective, like more like a top spin style tennis game.
Like the Virtual Boy Mario Tennis.
Yeah,
right.
Virtual Boy is a great frame of reference because it's like pixel art, it's like a 4-bit palette, but just wanted to just plug some of those games, and just in general plug like our YouTube and our Twitch, because we've been on there quite a bit, and any of the Twitch streams that don't turn out like shit, we've been uploading to YouTube.
Pursuing Pixels. Check it out on Twitch.
Yes, indeed. But DJ, what have you been playing before we dig into some of the meat of this episode here?
This impending conversation.
Yes. That I'm sweating a little bit.
We'll see. I'm going to be the tiebreaker. But like mainly earlier this week, been just doing more AAA stuff, like played more Watch Dogs 2, which continue to feel really good about. Just the puzzle aspects, like, and approaching combat from, different ways than your typical third-person shooter or what have you, just because you've got all those hacking capabilities. One thing I forgot to mention on the previous episode we talked about this, there's also an element where you can do like these online co-op or PvP missions. It's almost kind of like Dark Souls style, where someone can like invade your game and like from like a rival tech gang or whatever, and like try to like hack you or whatever. It could just be like while you're having a fucking like shootout with the cops or whatever, and then go like this guy. But like,
that's pretty good.
Like there's just it was a really fun experience, and then from there I moved on to Rise of the Tomb Raider. That was just
I'm curious about this. I have that game. I have it physically. So yeah, I'm curious if you have good things to say. I might fire that up.
I mean, I feel like I've got a better feeling towards these games than the Uncharted games. Like I know they're very similar, but like this one's definitely
interesting because Uncharted was kind of considered like the new Tomb Raider when the first ones came out, and then Tomb Raider kind of borrowed from the Uncharted series when they rebooted that franchise.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they definitely have a similar feel. I kind of like how Tomb Raider is a little more RPG-ish, where like it's not really a sandbox, but like there's a substantial world that you can explore and like do these side missions. And there's also like elements of like, you get all these different materials and you can use them to like upgrade your weapons, and you can like, level up and do like...
Yeah, did you ever talk about the first, like, just, I think it was just called Tomb Raider, the first of the reboots on the podcast, DJ?
Not.
I kind of remember that.
That was one, it was just on that list I rattled off of like all the
Gotcha. I played some of that back on PS3, and I remember, it was definitely more like open world style than it was, than Uncharted, at least. It wasn't that corridor shooter like we mentioned before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and also like, I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority here, but like I didn't find the Uncharted games to be like particularly charming. In fact, like, I don't know, like something about Nathan Drake just did not rub me the right way. Whereas like, I don't know, I feel like, I don't think, the charm of Tomb Raider is spectacular or anything, but there was nothing like annoying to me, I guess, at least.
Well, they're not really, at least in the PS3 one, they're not really going for that like campy, charmy. Like they're not going to like get on your side, I guess. They're just like telling a story. Yeah. It felt to me.
Yeah. And, definitely full of a lot of nice cinematic elements.
Yeah, for sure.
Without all the bullshit.
Without Drake catching Sully fucking 45 times by the skin of his teeth,
But, after playing those games, like, I mean, so Watch Dogs 2 and like Tomb Raider, there's definitely like a lot of exploration to them that like I think really, I guess, slowed me down a lot, and that caused me to try to switch things up and move on to a game that you guys had been playing, Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which you've been kind of pushing for this one for a while, because I know you picked it up a while ago, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of mentioning like, hey, I'm down to play this whenever.
Yeah, and then when like I nabbed that before I had even played the original one, and I like the charm of the first Yooka-Laylee game like definitely propelled me to like, I definitely want to play this other game. So I've made it to the end.
Nice.
But I think in terms of passionate opinions on this game, I think Kevin and Randall, you two have maybe more to say than I do.
Well, are you saying that you're mostly like just kind of mediocre on it? Without, I mean, we'll get into it, obviously.
Yeah, we'll get. Fine, I'll just say. Like I think that what I don't appreciate about these games, and this like also being like the Donkey Kong Country Returns games, and even
which
some
this
of
is very much of that same ilk.
Oh yeah,
like very, very much.
And even some of the newer 2D Mario games, just like the hidden secret bullshit aspect of it, where like I feel like just I think I go into these games wanting like a more technical, somewhat fast-paced experience, and I end up just like running against every single wall to see if it's a fake wall because there's hidden coins everywhere and just
that's fair.
Hold on, but that's fair to a degree. But I will say it's like a little more egregious in like the new Super Mario Brothers games where like you literally have to slide against a solid wall that you would have no indication. Where I think, at least in my experience, because this is like more of like a 2.5D, you can kind of see like, oh, here's a little opening. You can kind of see with the depth. You can kind of see that there's like a secret in most cases.
They generally do give.
Not that I've found them all, but I think there's enough of a visual indication that it's better than most.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you.
They are good about giving indicators, but like, I'll still find myself being like, okay, is this like a bottomless pit or is this like a section that I can drop down to?
That kind of stuff, I know what you mean for sure.
Yep.
So, but I found that the like end of the game, like the Impossible Lair that you're trying to reach, like that, on the other hand, is like it's not about secrets at all, and it's very technical. And it's just like, man, I wish the rest of the game was more like this. Like it just felt very, I don't know, just more my speed, I guess, in terms of the levels themselves. I will say, like, I also like did find myself enjoying the overworld aspect of like just doing all these little puzzles and little platforming.
That was a huge surprise to me. That was a huge surprise to me.
So as the person who hasn't played this game, can you explain what like the overworld is? Is it just like a hub world where you're selecting levels, or is it like an actual thing with objectives that you do?
It's kind of both, because it's like you have like these top-down, like you are picking your levels from the top-down overworld, but you're also like solving little puzzles. Like it's kind of like a little mini, or I shouldn't even say mini, it's actually pretty big, like top-down Zelda map where you're kind of getting these little flower bombs and these fire bombs and these water bombs, because each level actually has a second version of it, where like each level's like a book. So like for example, like one of the levels might be like, so a book will be submerged in some water and the level's kind of like flooded when you play it the first time. And then maybe you can pick up an ice flower or blossom or whatever they're called, throw that on top of the water, it freezes it, and now it's like a frozen level with some new challenges and whatnot. And I think they changed the levels up pretty drastically to where they feel, I mean, you're clearly seeing some of the same terrain, but you're definitely seeing a new level for the most part. To me, like it's like there's 5 hidden coins in every level, kind of like Kong style. Although you have to use those for some of like the paywalls to open up new parts of the overworld.
Right.
But I thought that was also pretty generous. Like I've missed quite a few of those. I've found quite a few too, but like, you know, maybe only a little over half of them that I've found, but I've still been able to unlock everything along the way other than whatever you can unlock maybe by getting all of them. But yeah, I've just really enjoyed that overworld experience and the way it paces out the game. And just like when I first saw clips and like the trailers of this game, I kind of thought those were just different. You know how like Mario Galaxy or any of the 3D Mario games will have like little kind of mini 2.5D like sections and levels. I kind of just assumed that these were like a couple of levels in the game that were like top down and had just kind of more puzzle solving. But this was like a full blown, like, you know, minimal overworld experience. It's not like it wouldn't be its own game on its own, but I thought there was a lot of cool puzzle solving in there. And then on top of that, I thought the levels themselves were like really sprawling, really huge. They're all like a pretty kind of like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze style. They like tell a story almost within the level, not quite to that like where like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze will like do it within the whole world. But man, I just really love the mechanics. I love how, like, again, similar to Donkey Kong, it's like you have different abilities when you have Laylee with you and when you don't. I don't know. I just thought the challenge, the way the checkpoints worked, it provided like a not frustrating experience. Although I still was dying a lot in a lot of cases, it was like I was able, between getting Laylee back pretty easily, and then in some cases, and like having all these different buffs you can pick from. It's just there's so much going on in this game. I almost too much, but I thought they found a really nice balance overall. But what about you, Randall? I know you're the more negative out of all of us, I think, on this one. not to spoil it.
I did not find it easy to get Laylee back most of the time. I'll say that much. Like,
did you use the tonic that lets Laylee stick around a little bit longer? No, you gotta get those tonics. There's all kinds of buffs and abilities.
But if you use that tonic, you get less quills from your level.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I was down to 0.4 times my quill count based on my buffs, but
I don't know what that means. So I only made it like 3 or 4 levels in.
Oh, man. Anyways.
I just wasn't feeling it. And maybe it's just because I'm grumpier these days and I just don't have a lot of time. But like every time I booted this game more than once, like 3 times, and every time
I saw you fired up a few times, and I was like, maybe Randall's liking it. Maybe he's turning the corner.
I did try, and I own both Yooka-Laylee games, and I bought this one fairly quickly after it released because I'm like, oh man, they're going for a DKC thing, and there's not that many games that are in that vein, so cool, yeah, why not? And then it got really good reviews too.
Yeah, it got great reviews off the top. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, awesome. Like, let me go after this. And I just was not feeling it. Like, and I know like part of it is there's a lot of talking, and I know they're just trying to harken back to the banjo thing, and I get that. But this is
it doesn't even come close to the first Yooka-Laylee for what it's worth.
You're right.
Like for me, it didn't even get in the way at all. Didn't hinder my experience.
Yeah, that's fair. Did for me.
Which is also fair.
And that, even more so, like getting into levels, I didn't find the levels like visually all that attractive. And granted, I'm playing on Switch, so there's going to be a downgrade visually there. But I just didn't like, everything looked a little bit generic to me, like compared to the polish that Nintendo gives something like a Donkey Kong Country. I don't know. I just couldn't find myself getting into it. There's things like another little Nintendo polish thing that I didn't see here is like, say there's platforms that are like, you jump on them and as soon as you touch them, they're going to fall, right? Okay. So in Nintendo games, when that happens, you could like, oh, this platform is falling. Let me jump back, reset the screen by like moving back left for, another full screen and then come back. That shit doesn't happen, or at least for me, did not happen in Yooka-Laylee in Impossible Lair and in the couple levels I played. So
interesting.
So like it just turns a level unbeatable.
Yeah. They're like, okay, I guess I need to die now?
Those checkpoints are so generous, but I didn't have that happen to me, but I will say I did like land on some like moving conveyor belt type platforms once in a while, and my character would not move until it was like I didn't land right on the moving part of it somehow.
Yeah,
there were some weird things that would hiccup every once in a while, but again, it didn't really hinder my experience, but it did make certain sections maybe a little easier because I wasn't moving around like I was supposed to.
Yeah,
but that's really interesting because I found this game to be absolutely gorgeous. Like I think it is, like, other than the enemy designs are maybe a little bit generic.
Yeah,
like there's a little bit repetitive on that end, but I think like the level design, that like 3D sense of depth, like again that 2.5D, I loved it. I really think these levels like really feel alive to me. Like again, when you play like a level where you can like swim a bunch and then all of a sudden it's frozen and you play it again, and like I just thought it was so cool. And even the way you have to solve those puzzles to like make that happen, like I don't know, I was fully sucked into this game. Like I put it pretty damn close to the Donkey Kong Country Returns games. Like I think it's right up there with them personally. I think it's got a little bit of flavor of that with like just a hint of the Rayman, like Origins, Rayman Legends games, the way it like kind of tallies up your scores at the end, and the quills, which I hate those Rayman games.
It pulls a lot from Rayman that way, I thought, which I think also kind of, I don't know, it kind of bothered me. Like you guys almost kind of ripped it off from Rayman. Like,
yeah, and Donkey Kong for that matter. Yeah. I mean, they're not worried about the originality here on that end, I don't think.
The only other nitpick I'll have, and I'll stop beating it because
go ahead.
Is I just didn't. The controls, like in general, I didn't feel the control was quite as tight as I would like compared to something like Donkey Kong Country Returns or Tropical Freeze. Like I
like it better than Donkey Kong. I think it controls better.
I felt like I was controlling a 3D character in a 2D space, and that just didn't jive with me.
You know, there was a time or two, I know what you mean, because like New Super Lucky's Tale had a little bit of that in the 2D sections, and I sort of know what you mean.
But I didn't experience that in New Super Lucky's Tale, and I see what you mean there, but it didn't bother me there. For whatever reason, it bothered me here.
I have no idea what you mean by...
I know what you mean. Like, I don't know though, but like the way you have that like roll ability and like your mobility and the speed, like it's a little faster than Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
Like you get little elements of like Sonic in there even. And like,
I could see it.
I don't know, like not quite Sonic speeds, but like you get little elements of that. And I don't like Sonic games either. So it's just like taking like just enough of all those elements for me, I guess, that it's just coming together in the right way.
Yeah.
Because I'm like enjoying going back for all the collectibles, and like even there's been a couple of levels I'm like, how the hell do I get to that part of the overworld map? Like it actually is kind of tricky, and like I don't know, and it is cool how like the game actually starts like the first thing you do is like the tutorial happens in the Impossible Lair,
right?
And you can actually try it whenever you want, but every level you beat, you like earn another hit point, I think, that you can take during the. Yep. Yeah, so just a really cool kind of overall mechanic. You can go to try to do it without taking damage, I guess, which maybe is what DJ is trying to do.
Yeah, I initially did the default where like you've got all the battalion to take those hits for you. And I went in.
The puns
with, like,
are pretty
43.
bad, I'll say.
Yeah,
some of the puns are terrible.
But that's like
there was a
style.
bee that they tried to. Some of them are okay, like the Beetallion's fine, but they tried to make like a pun out of a bee and naming the bee Daniel. I can't remember. It was like, oh boy, it was like B Daniel or something. It was so bad. It was unbelievable. It wasn't B Daniel, but
so I did the Impossible Lair. Well, I guess on the default version, it's the not so Impossible Lair where you've got the battalion with you, and so. You actually reach checkpoints. There's like 4 checkpoints.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So there's like, 4 main chunks. So what happens if like let's say you get through the first chunk and you have like 38 of your battalion still there. Then if you go back to, replay the level, you can choose to start at the beginning, or you can choose to start at that checkpoint, and it's with the greatest amount of bees that you reached that checkpoint with.
That's nice.
Okay. That's cool.
But with the Impossible Lair, there's no checkpoints and no battalion, and there's no like boxes. There's none of those bells where if you lose Laylee, you can get Laylee back. You have to do
no DK barrels.
Yeah, no, you have to do the entire stage
without damage.
Yeah, I mean, aside from like getting Laylee back, if
oh yeah, I guess you get that like little window to catch the bat. Yeah,
but also in the lair, in both versions of it, no tonics, so. You'll lose that Laylee ability there, Kevin.
Yeah, and those tonics are like, some of them are like, I forget what I was using even, but they're just like different buffs. Some of them are just like visual effects, different like cheats, not cheats, but
there's like where if you're twirling in the air, you can hold it.
Yeah,
so
like modifiers and stuff. Yeah, which is like I'm using that for sure.
Which is kind of like necessary for a lot of the secrets actually, but Yeah. So the farthest I've made it on the like actual Impossible Lair, like I think they tracked it like I made it like 39% of the way. Like it's brutal.
Ooh, Jesus.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I got most of the collectible stuff, but I think I'm just like at the point where I think going after all those collectibles really slowed down the experience for me, and it's just hard for me to shut that part of my brain off. Like, I think I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more if I was just like trying to almost speed run through the levels.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I've mostly been doing, not speed run through them because I've been poking around too. But I thought it was paced really well where like the coins you get, again, I was able to get all those paywalls without really having to go back and replay levels and stuff.
That's nice.
But I do know what you mean though. Like there is part of my brain that like I do wish when I'm playing a platformer, I do just want to play more of a, it doesn't have to be as hardcore as Super Meat Boy, but like I do just want to play a game that's like get from point A to point B, no frills, that's it.
Yeah, right. And
that's usually what I'd rather play.
It seems like that, I don't know, is maybe just hard to come by these days. I mean, I'm also very ignorant of what's out there, so I'm not the one to judge that, but I can't think of a ton of recent stuff where they cut that exploration, I guess, element out of the platforming.
Yeah, because even Celeste has a little bit of that on some of the levels where you're kind
all
of
the strawberries,
backtracking,
man.
going back around. Well, not even the strawberries, but like in that library level or the hotel, like you're kind of like going back. It's not Metroidvania, but you're exploring a lot. It's not just go to the right or go to the left. It doesn't have to be just to the right, but
Except that level's sweet.
that was my least favorite level in the game by
I think
far.
that level's sweet.
No, that
I like the
level
boss
rules.
battle with the librarian was really cool, with that giant head when it's chasing you.
Yeah.
But anyways, anything else to add on Yooka-Laylee before we move on and get into the last thing tonight?
No.
Well, okay, I guess we're mixed bag on Yooka-Laylee, but I picked it up on the cheap, and I'd say if you can get a good deal on it, I'd still say it's worth checking out if you're interested in 2D platformers.
I agree with that.
But Randall, I know we've been waiting
teasing
for
this.
a while to get to this.
highly
I'm not even going to
anticipated.
set it up. Why don't you just take it away here? Because we've been teasing this for a while.
So I've been a TurboGrafx fan for a long time. Ever since, let me set the stage here, ever since the Wii and the Virtual Console, and a lot of us Americans found out about TurboGrafx for the first time, really. I mean,
Yep.
it released here, but only to a select set of 10-year-olds that could buy one of those and got one instead of an NES back in the day or something, right?
You had to have some super hipster parents going like, that Nintendo, that Genesis, not for us. We're going with the Turbo.
Those parents were awesome, although I would have wanted
Seriously.
both. But, I was like, oh my gosh, these games are great as I started buying them on Virtual Console on Wii.
Same.
And most of the great TurboGrafx and PC Engine games released on Virtual Console on Wii. So I got like a huge breadth of the library there, to the point where I'm like, okay, I want the real deal. And I bought a Turbo Duo, which was a combination TurboGrafx plus the PC Engine Duo as far as the CD-ROM add-on. It kind of built those together into one system, so you could have both the Who card, which is like the cartridge, like little credit card size cartridges that you could get for either region, and then the CD, which was region free. So I bought a Turbo Duo, got a Turbo Duo collection going in about 2013 before it got ungodly expensive to do so.
Yeah, you got in there just in time.
I know. I had
And
no
even
idea.
still, they would cost a fucking fortune at that time, too. Or
Unreal.
some of the games. But
Unreal. Most of the games, honestly.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
even the pack-ins, yeah.
But the silver lining there is they released a TurboGrafx Mini this year. Back in
Yes.
May. Yes.
Which there seems to be a mini retro console of every retro console. If Turbo Mini can get a mini version,
Yeah.
pretty much everything.
Yeah, they're talking about, there's rumors about a Dreamcast Mini, so.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
As long as Power Stone 1 and 2 are on there, that's all I want.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But TurboGrafx Mini, so I passed on getting one when they first came out in May of 2020. And I'm like, I got the real deal. Do I really need to get this? Like, even though it's got save states and all this stuff and seems like it's well built, good reviews, I'll pass for now. But then it went out of stock for a while. I'm like, oh, geez, shoot. Maybe I should have grabbed one. I thought it was just going to drop in price like the other mini consoles, like the Genesis one or whatever.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they brought it back in stock a few months ago. I got it for regular price, which is $99. Bought it. Got it shipped here, and I love it. I think it's really well made. There's 57 games on it.
I was just going to say how many games. That's nice. That's a nice selection.
It is, with the caveat that, because the PC Engine, the TurboGrafx in Japan, the PC Engine was so much more successful in Japan than it was here in the United States. A lot more games released over there in Japan than released over here. A lot of those, probably a good 10% of those games on this TurboGrafx Mini are on PC Engine, and they're in Japanese only. And there's
Okay. So we're talking Mario Super Picross style.
yeah. Although, on some of them, they're more story-based games, and it's all just hitting you with walls of Japanese text. And I'm like, oh, I guess this isn't going to happen.
I was going to ask, how many of those specifically are RPG games?
There's a handful. The best ones that aren't Japanese or aren't Japanese only are the Newtopia games, I think.
Yes.
And those are, Legend of Zelda Zelda clone games, but just diluting it to that kind of sells them short. I think they're actually pretty great games in their own right.
They have a unique enough style. I remember like peeping those on the Virtual Console on the Wii and stuff, and just thinking like, yeah, these have like a cool enough, like they look enough their own thing that they're not just a Zelda game.
Yep. So you get both of those, and because this is one of the modern mini consoles, it's got those save states and things like that. So a lot of your pain points you'd have just playing these on, original hardware where you don't get save points, besides every couple hours. That's not the case here. You got those quality of life things. Another RPG-ish games, East Books 1 and 2. I would also recommend.
Oh, shit. Yeah,
and those are in English as well, right? Yeah.
Yes, they are. And they're great. And the soundtrack's great. And those games, that package is what they used to sell the Turbo Duo when that came out, because it's a CD-based thing. And that was as much of a system seller as you could get in like 92, 93 on a already failing system. That was it.
I was going to ask, like, what were the system sellers for you for this even? Or just like in like when you were collecting them on the Wii, like what was it that like you started?
Or even collecting them in cartridge form, in HooCard form.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, like this is like the shmup mecca, for retro shmups. This system is incredible. Just the way they designed the hardware, it's so fast. I love the TurboGrafx graphics, where it's like it's kind of a hybrid between an 8-bit and 16-bit. It's more 16-bit than not, but it kind of splits the difference a little bit. And I love the kind of like chunky, clean pixel art.
It's like a little flatter or something, but in a way that it makes it pop more. I think.
And the color palette's always great. Typically, like they're not shy with colors and vibrancy in a lot of these games. The shooters are fantastic, and that's what always draws me back to any
Blazing Lasers. Is that on there?
Yep. Blazing Lasers.
That game is that was one of the ones I had on the Virtual Console, and that game I played so fucking much. It's so good.
It's one of the compile shooters, along with games like what else is on there? You got Soldier Blade. You got
nice. That was another great one.
Spriggan, which is another one similar to like if you guys remember Musha on Sega Genesis.
Yes.
Yeah. So like just like classic shooters, all made by this developer Compile in Japan, which is just like a legendary shmup developer. All of them kind of play similarly, and I love the games they make.
And that's who made Blazing Lasers, you said? Because I'm familiar with that game, but was not familiar with that developer by name. So
Compile.
If it's anything similar to that, I'm all in.
Yep. But yeah, the top 3 I'd probably recommend that are on the TurboGrafx Mini that are probably my favorite games are like Air Zonk, which is the bonks.
And that was one of the duo games, right? Like one of the CD games. So I was gonna ask.
The first one is actually cartridge. The second one is CD.
Gotcha. Yeah. So are there any of the CD games on here, or is it all just the... Okay, cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Lots of CD games. You've got Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which...
Oh, my God. I'm buying this, like, right fucking now, dude. Yeah. There's so much good... Because this is a console I never had, like you said. Like, I've really... Like, the SNES and the NES, cool little novelty things, but I've got that in my retro collection. I really kind of want this now.
It's so good. It's great. They've got great, like, little... background music happening when you're selecting your titles. They did put a lot of polish in this that I like.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, by the way. I just got so excited when you said Castlevania.
Yes, I figured that was going to happen
that's on
with
there?
Castlevania. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that game goes for a pretty penny, so $100 for this mini alone is like, that's almost worth it just for that game. Like, and that's, seriously.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was coming from, too, is like most of these games you can't really grab for under $100 anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But they're all here together for $100. And like even down to the controller, they did a great job recreating the Turbo controller.
Okay, you haven't mentioned any Bomberman games, and I think that's malpractice.
Oh, does it have Bomberman 94?
93, 94,
yes,
Panic Bomber? Oh, my God.
Panic Bomber is an awesome puzzle game that's kind of similar to Puyo Puyo that I think is great as well.
Oh, yes, dude. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I'm buying one of these like as soon as we sign off tonight.
Including... There's also a Ghouls and Ghosts It's called like Daike Makumura. That's probably a horrible pronunciation, but it's so besides TurboGrafx and Turbo Duo and PC Engine, in Japan there's a system called Super Graphics, which was supposed to be the next iteration.
32 bits.
More like 16-ish bit. But 5 games got released, and one of them is probably the best version of Ghouls and Ghosts, and that's also on this system.
Also, Snatcher.
So, yes, there is
That's
Snatcher.
one of the Japanese
Unfortunately, it's
games?
only in Japanese.
Okay.
I know. Yeah.
That's a bummer.
That's still, dude, I'm buying this 100% for sure. Maybe not tonight, but you sold me so hard on this just now.
Yeah.
What are some of the other, like, I mean, I'm assuming all the Bonk games are on there.
Yep.
Which of those are just okay, in my opinion, for my virtual console experience.
I agree.
Although, to be honest, I only played the first one, and I will say the follow-ups definitely looked more interesting, at least, like more going on.
Bonk's Revenge, which is Bonk 2, I think is the best one. And it's definitely better than Bonk's Adventure, but it's still not like lighting my world on fire as compared to any of the Mario games.
Right.
But yeah, like just shmups galore. Like Lords of Thunder is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Sapphire is another, like, pushes the systems to its limits, like does full like 3D effects. Excellent game. Also really expensive. It's on here. Like,
yeah.
And then you have
this
other
is like
random
a
games
no-brainer.
like Splatterhouse and like New Adventure Island and like just a great collection. Alien Crush.
Yeah.
Tons of
This
stuff.
is
like
this is a
ton of games that you
Yeah.
just can't get anywhere else. Like
Exactly.
And it sounds like because the TurboGrafx had such like a limited catalog, it really does sound like this pretty much covers the gamut. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a couple that you're missing, but like as far as if you're into retro gaming, this sounds like pretty much a no-brainer, if especially being that there's so many games that most of us probably missed out on back in the 90s.
The advantage is
even
because
80s.
it was like so like it wasn't successful in America, but it was in Japan. It still it got some support from other developers, but it was mostly Hudson Soft, like keeping the
Hudson
sucker
killing
afloat.
it.
Yeah, and the games were amazing. And then Konami had some other ones, and then Konami bought the catalog of Hudson Soft, which allowed them to release this and have all of them. The only other things I'll talk about is 8-Bit Do made a wireless controller for this thing that I would also recommend. Because it's just USB ports on the front of it, which you get 2 instead of, thankfully, 1. There's only 1 controller port on a typical one of these systems.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. But it's great. It's only like $20, and that's the way that I play it, is using that 8-Bit Do controller. And it's what's nice about that controller too is there's a menu button like predefined on it, whereas on the controller that comes with it, you have to press like a button combination to get into the menu screen. So, yeah,
You got a nice home button on the 8-Bit Do.
If I can slag them for anything, it's they didn't put a power adapter in this with the box. You know, yeah. So it's
What do you mean,
USB
a
powered.
Gotcha.
They assume
I
you
was
have
gonna say, like,
USB.
it's a proproprietary, like 15 volt, like DC power
no.
brick that you.
You got to order your Electro Harmonics 18 volt power adapters.
No, for some reason, a lot of Japanese companies do this. Like they'll just like release this thing without a power adapter. I don't know. But what I did to get around it, because I saw someone else say this, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Is actually the Xbox One. Most of the Xbox One SKUs have not only extra USB ports, but an HDMI in. So what you can do, what I did is I just plugged in this TurboGrafx HDMI in into the Xbox plus USB into the Xbox. So, you know, when I play the TurboGrafx, I just power on the Xbox, go to the One guide, and it automatically passes through the TurboGrafx signal, and I don't have to take up another HDMI slot or a power slot.
Beautiful.
That's nice.
That's my
really
AV
cool.
nerd stuff. So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, just not to mention that the TurboGrafx games are super expensive.
Yeah.
The systems are expensive.
Yep.
It's hard to maintain all that retro stuff. But again, that you can just hook this up HDMI and play it on your modern TV and play all these games that, like I said, or like you said, that we all missed out on these pretty much. You know, not many of us had TurboGrafx. None of us here, but not many of us in general had this system. So
buy the TurboGrafx
all these
Mini.
57 games. Yeah.
Yes. Play Star Parodier. It's fantastic.
Oh God, dude! Every game you mentioned, I'm just like, I remember either buying that on not Switch, on the Wii, or at least checking it out. I mean, I looked at so many of those TurboGrafx games because it was like this cool, like almost like a field day of like, look at all these new retro games,
new to us,
that I'd never heard of. So.
Exactly.
Really, really cool, man. You just totally sold me on this. So we might have to talk some more TurboGrafx in the future. At the very least, I'm firing up my Wii emulator on my Wii U so I can play those downloads.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
maybe I'll even stream some. Heck, 480p style.
I love it.
Nice, but I think if you got nothing else to add to the Turbo stuff, Randall, I think we can pretty much wrap things up this week. We've been going a little longer than usual, but
there you go.
That's because we got a lot of good shit to talk about,
That's what
guys.
I'm saying.
Nice. Well, we'll wrap things up there this week. But as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. You don't even need the www anymore.
That's right.
Randall took care of that shit. You can also hang out with us on Discord. We've got links again at the bottom of the episode description as always. But we're on YouTube and Twitch, like I mentioned earlier. I've been doing a lot more of that lately.
Yeah.
And yeah, Instagram, Twitter. I might have mentioned that already, but just /pursuingpixels. Look us up, send us an email at pursuingpixels@gmail.com if you got a question or anything. But otherwise, we will catch you next week. And until then, take care.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Boy.
So there's a baby in a tube.
Yes. Also, your pee turns into Monster Energy drink.
Oh my God. Is it actually branded Monster?
It 100% is.
God, I knew it. Fucking knew it.
That is an unbelievable game. I know that like video games are like starved for like, I don't know, weird stories or like at least like, I don't, he's not like approaching David Lynch, but like at least like that auteur like type of storytelling. That doesn't happen.
Do whatever your heart desires and no one's going to stop you.
No.
But it's just like, oh man, I really wish that there was anyone else besides Hideo Kojima who did
the only other person who comes close is Suda 51.
Yeah.
But like his are all like the same like gross out like
it's more like
immature-
Tarantino like vibe like over the top.
That's a good comparison.
From the person who's barely seen any Tarantino movies.
But no, that's definitely, if like Kojima is like David Lynch, then like I would definitely put Suda as like Tarantino.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of that like meathead, like thinking man or whatever.
Fight Club vibes or whatever. Maybe not quite Fight Club, but you know, just brutal violence.
Mm-hmm.